if you could come. Hi, Kat. Perfect. Yeah, let's do the podium. I guess. All right, there you go. I will now administer the oath of office to student advisors, Odessa Javier and Maya Trumper. All right, perfect. Who were elected to serve as the advisors to the MRH Board of Education from within the High School Principals Advisory Leadership Board. All right, so here's the oath of office. As prescribed in Article 7, Section 11 of the Constitution of Missouri, I state your name.
I Maya Trumper,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of School Board Student Advisor
of School Board Student Advisor
in and for the School District of Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
in and for the School District of Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
St. Louis, Missouri,
St. Louis, Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations.
Life there could not have been worse. And you on either side then, please? So just take a second. I would like to get the whole room together. Can I get the whole room out? Thank you.
Photo op music.
And we're back. All right. So before we begin public forum, I just wanted to comment that there was scheduled to be a meeting with the NEA and representatives of the school board last week. That meeting was canceled because there was some confusion as to what that actually is supposed to look at. We're still we're still going over the process. In fact, tonight in our executive session, that is something that we are going to be talking about, but just to assure the community, that is something that we are very much still want to do. It's something that is, kind of on our agenda. And with that, I believe we have one person requesting public comment. So if you could approach the podium. The general rules still apply. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We ask that you don't comment on any specific staff or any specific student, and we may or may not respond to you. There you go.
My name is Eleanor Pardini. I I live in Maplewood. I do not need a comment back. The last time I was here was in December of 2023 to offer some appreciation, and I have some appreciations to offer again. When I was here in December, I thanked Mr. Dodson and Ms. Elam for the work that they were doing with my son and his friend on the paper airplane competition and the paper airplane club. And I want to thank Ms. Elam and Dr. Hartnett and for bringing the paper airplane club online and bringing it to life. So the kids got to have their first paper airplane club this Tuesday. And I really appreciate this, this work that they do to follow child-led interests on project-based inquiry activities. I also briefly wanted to share an email that I sent to Ms. Stansel and Ms. Elam and Ed to thank them for some of their work they did earlier this year. I said, Ms. Stansel and Ms. Elam, I just wanted to send a quick note to say that the ECC, the elementary school, and the district knocked it out of the park with back-to-school events this year. I really loved how you streamlined events into one specific thing for each school and then ran the combined back-to-school fair at the high school pool for the district. It felt so much more manageable and easy to keep straight in my head. I was actually able to show up to 2 of the 3 events for my kids' age groups, and they were really well run and felt really worth my time. All the communication about the events was great too, easy to follow, not so much that I was overwhelmed, and repeated similar messages from all platforms helped me keep it straight. Your weekly emails this year look fantastic. Thank you. Ed, thank you for your messaging that's coming from the district via emails and social media. I appreciate the consistent messaging that is coming from the school, from the district, and principals. And finally, the last appreciation I want to express is to the board for your work centering and prioritizing equity for all of our kiddos. When I was on city council in Maplewood, the racial equity lens questions that were offered by Ford through Ferguson were my North Star that guided all of my work there. So the questions are who benefits and who is harmed? Is any group disproportionately harmed? And what can we tweak to reduce disparities? And I am really excited that following the 2020 passage of the education equity policy in MRH, which was the first in our state to my knowledge, that the adoption of the new Assembly platform for your board documents allows these 3 questions from your policy to be embedded into every decision that you're considering. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on. All right, study items. The first one is special tuition agreement by Dr. Shonda Ambers Phillips.
Thank you. I'd like to bring the item back. In August, I brought the item to you for special tuition, and I was asked by the board if I could bring this item back with a repayment structure that actually had a graduated tiered approach. And so that is what I included in the document today. Let's see if I can get this pulled up quick. So here's the new repayment agreement. As you can see, there's a repayment schedule. Since it is a 3-year term, every year the individual would be paying back a third of that. So 0 to 3, 1 year, it's 100% the employee would owe. For 1 to 2 years, it'd be 66%. 2 to 3, it would be 33%. And after that last year, the employee would not owe anything. So the other additional question that was posed was, what was the actual cost? What was the financial impact for the district? There are 4 courses that we offer through the Project Lead the Way strand. Our extra duty rate right now is $33 an hour, And so each course has about 10 weeks and 80 hours that the individual is tasked with completing to complete the course. So if that individual completes all 4 courses within that strand, it would be $10,560. The courses themselves cost about $2,400. However, I also attached in my document the PLTW guarantee, which the PLTW training guarantee essentially says that if you have a staff member who was trained less than 4 years ago, then if an individual comes back through to be trained, if that staff member leaves the district, then the district does not pay. So it really seeks to protect the investment of the district, to make sure that there's continuity and sustainability of the program, and it reduces the risk of the district then having to go back and pay the $2,400 per class again. So the cost would just be to reimburse the employee for their time and effort to take the classes for the certification. Are there any questions that I might be able to answer for you? No?
Does that repayment go indefinitely, or is it just like a one-time thing? Like if someone leaves in the is it like 4 years from when we signed a contract? Or like if this person leaves within 4 years, will they train the next person for free?
My
I'm
understanding
sorry.
is,
Yeah.
my understanding is when the original person completed their
That person,
program.
so you get a, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
But,
We're
and,
talking
yeah,
about the-
sorry, I know it's sort of a weird.
I was gonna jump in because I'm the one filling out the form,
Yeah,
so.
I thought we were talking about this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the updates.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, next study item, surplus of district property and real estate by Dr. Michael Dietrich.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Currently, the district owns 4 residential properties due to the new construction at the high school, and we've moved our alternative services programs over into that building. We are seeking to make 2555 and 2556, which are both zoned for public activity. We're seeking to make those both surplus. One of the things, as we heard from one of our speakers tonight, is how does that impact different groups? I didn't think about this as we're doing it, but actually one of the impacts is, as principal of the middle school, I consistently heard, the kids across the street. By moving students or those services into the regular building, this move actually is a very positive impact on our school and how we are treating students. As far as financial impact, there's a lot of financial impact as far as upkeep of that building, insurance, we have alarm on that home. We did seek, one of the impacts as far as curriculum is the gardens in the back of one of those homes. The bees are in the back of one of the other homes. We did not see an issue with relocating the bees. I've met with the beekeepers. We have some pretty simple solutions as where we can relocate them. The gardens are a little bit different. In conversations as far as what we can do, we would seek to keep some access to the back of that property. And we've already had some conversations about what that would look like. And we think that that's possible. So what we would ask tonight is to move those properties to surplus. Any questions?
That is actually not on the agenda
I'm
item
sorry, it's a
tonight.
study.
The action
It's
item.
a
Okay.
study, sorry. You're correct.
No questions? All right, admin and communications. Yes. All right, program evaluation, English language learners by Crystal Swoboda.
Yeah, I'm going to get us started and kick off the ELL program evaluation and ask for Ms. Hagen to join us over at the podium. right, we are presenting to you tonight the ELL program evaluation. It has been a number of years since we've seen this back in front of you, so we're excited to bring it to you this evening. In 2022, the program evaluation did not provide goals. However, we did do a great job of giving a solid overview of what the English language learner program consists of and what services and support are provided for students. Our ELL program consists of a kind of a 0.8 allocation at our middle school, high school, a full FTE at our elementary, and 0.5 at our ECC building. Salaries and benefits totaling around $211,000. Tate's going to walk us through some of our exciting opportunities over the next couple of years.
Hi, I am Tate. I am at the elementary. I am the full-time educator. We have seen a lot of growth at the high school, especially this year with some of our newcomers, but we're also making really good strides. We had 38% of our students that met their growth target. That is a target that is set by DESE in their language acquisition on the WIDA Access for ELLs test. That does change and evolve, so next time we'll have more to offer. That number does not include students who have exited the program, meaning they've hit their growth targets in prior years since 2002 as well. This is current. We have a major goal for communication and equity with our students, which is to get 100% of students involved in some kind of activity that they are interested in. At any level, we have clubs, we have extracurriculars, all the way down through the ECC. And we'd also like to work with our staff colleagues, and really increase the support for teachers on communicating with their families and with their students, and feeling very confident utilizing the services that we have available to them via translation and some of our other communication tools like Class Dojo, which will translate newsletters and forums and such.
All right, any questions that we may be able to answer for you?
I do have a question. I am wondering about the 38% achievement of goals. I was unaware that they're goals set by DESE, so that was a curiosity if we're setting inappropriate goals for kiddos, and DESE is going to be DESE with that. Wondering then if there is something that the board could be doing to support a higher goal achievement for our ELL students. And maybe that's something that the team might like to think about and come back to, but I do think that there may be something that you could recommend.
Thank you. That is wonderful. I do not have an answer off the top of my head. I apologize.
But one thing that Tate is doing a great job of is communicating with our regional our PDC coordinators that provide advocacy at the state level. So Tate does a great job of saying, hey, we're struggling with X, Y, and Z. Please communicate that up to our representatives at DESE and vice versa. So one of the things she recently brought up is the growth metric that WIDA is using is out of date. So thanks to Tate's work, she's advocated for that. That now is being communicated on, and we can't do it without her.
My question maybe is related to Katie's in a way, because am I reading this right that we now, in the last like 10 to 13 years, we've gone from 13 students to 66? Yeah.
That is correct.
And so I guess my question, and maybe this is about resources, like, do we have enough resources set aside to handle that increase? And then also with that, I saw it's a federally mandated program. Does the federal government help supplement the cost of that, or?
There's a magic number for Title III funding, and we have not actually hit that yet.
Okay, so no.
Yes, not yet.
So,
Not
okay.
yet.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and both Tate and I work collaboratively to identify, we like to think about, is our staff meeting our need? So when we have the access scores, we can find out what level of language proficiency our students are at and ensure that we have the correct number of FTE to support that. And then both Tate and I advocate annually when there is a deficit in some way,
And I guess I didn't know, sorry, because it's the first time I'm hearing a presentation on it, is if you could give like a brief sort of idea of like sort of how you do help kids that are in this program. I'm sure it's different depending on their proficiency level, but just sort of a...
Very much. It's a very individualized at different rates for different students. And then you have to add in factors like, for newcomers, they might be going through the silent phase where they're terrified to say anything. They don't want to get it wrong, they're embarrassed, or they just aren't comfortable where they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's not home. So that all plays in. And I spend a lot of time, and my colleagues spend a lot of time getting to know our students' interests, what drives them, what they miss, what makes them feel comfortable and safe. And we try and help them through those various stages of language acquisition the best we can, utilizing what we know about them.
Thank you.
I'll also add that our registrars do a great job eliciting families to complete what's called a home language survey, and that sets the groundwork for beginning those conversations and giving Tate and our other ELL staff the information that they need to get started to meet the families where they are.
Yeah, I have a question. The report is one of the 2 documents we received. It mentioned, so you have the 8 of 21 students here, and they're listed in this report as monitored students. What's the difference between the monitored students and the ones, the 43 that are listed as, identified as actively receive ELL services? Can you just describe the difference? Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good question. So the Access for ELLs measures English language proficiency. And when you get to it's on a scale of 1 to 6, 6 being fully proficient. So when you get to a score of 4.7, DESE actually requires us to transition them from receiving services to being monitored. That's basically a statement that they have hit a proficiency level with academic and social language that they're best served in the classroom with their peers, getting all of the content and collaborating with them. They are monitored for 4 years, monitored year 1, year 2, and a few years ago they added an additional year 3 and 4. At any moment during that time, if there are any concerns or any flags that are raised, then we can pull them back into ELL without any questioning. Of course, we would communicate with families and make sure they're all okay with that. I haven't run into that situation yet. But it also gives us 4 additional years to collaborate with the teachers and offer a variety of scaffolds that are really good, not just for ELLs, but for other students. Because the scaffolds really they address different styles of learning, so they're good for everyone.
Sorry, and just a follow-up. So the 8 out of 21 on this bullet point, that's referring to these monitored students then?
That is referring to the receiving students right now. And we have new students, so we have a higher number than the 21 receiving, because what's happened is we've had some students who have transitioned to other districts due to moving away from the districts, and then we've also had new students who have come in. So these are students that have been ours, tested, and received scores in our district.
Okay, sorry, but the report says 43 students are receiving services. So what's the relationship of the 21?
The 21 is the students that are here, that have been with us. There are scores, the first score to the comparison score.
So I want you to think about it as like a pre-test, post-test. Yeah. 21 of those 43 took both of them.
Got it.
All right?
That makes sense. Thank you.
And then the other 20 either exited out of the program or they just came into the program.
Right. If they were first, like I had a newcomer who came to the country last May and was a 1 in his screener, but he got a 3.9 on his access test that March. He more than made his growth, but we don't have a comparison for that one.
Okay, sorry. One last question
Sure.
then. So, because it's similar to what Katie and Jenny had raised earlier. Yeah, of course, we would love to see the number 8 rise to closer to the 21, but I guess there's really 43 students. Where it's maybe a little hard to tell just from the chart, but do you see that the needs for increased investment, whatever that would look like, are at the ECC, or the elementary, or the middle school? Because you've got three groups here separated on this chart.
That's a good question, and
I didn't break down the data to each of those levels. Happy to do so in the future.
Well, that would just be great to know. Do we need to add staffing like at one of the schools? And then, of course, these students are also moving up grades each year for this 4-year period. So
I will say, as a
anticipate the needs down the road.
Well, again, remember this program, we want to work ourselves out of a job. So we want them to leave and be monitored.
Yeah.
So we don't want to keep them. That's against
But new students could come in.
Correct,
right?
exactly,
Right.
100% true.
With
yes.
increased sort of internationalization in St. Louis.
You were
Hopefully
spot on. You were spot on. But yeah, we don't want to keep them with us, so we don't want to have them matriculate up. We want to serve the need where it is, and if that means that Tate spends a portion of her time at the ECC because of an increased need, that has happened, and we are flexible enough to make those things take place.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So you moved to different buildings then?
I am strictly at the EL at the elementary right now.
Got it.
But
It has happened.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I have, and I can move where I need it.
Okay.
Last year was, for me, I had a lot of growth. My first 2 years here, I had a lot of growth in the elementary school. Some of my students have transitioned to middle school, high school. This year, high school has seen an influx of high school newcomers. That's a new challenge. So I am kind of on deck, chatting with my colleague and saying, what do you need? How can I support?
Yeah.
And we will navigate those. Unfortunately, it can change year to year.
So we really need another person like you who's able to move across grade levels.
I mean,
don't ask Tate that. She'll always say
in
yes.
reality, that's what we need. Because we don't know where the next sort of international family is going to be coming, or which grade level the kids of that family will be in.
Well, luckily we run these reports annually, regardless of a program evaluation, and we do this forecasting every year as part of our.
So as far as your budget planning for next year, you're anticipating the needs. Okay.
And we lag a little bit on that only because our access tests come back like mid-June. So oftentimes our scores are a lagging indicator. So we keep track of our enrollment and support as we go.
I'm also a really big data geek, and I love following these
She is.
things. So I have identified a lot of new things that I'm following and putting together sheets. And so hopefully.
Thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, next 5.1 finances, Mr. Hoser.
Okay, good evening again. Tonight we will be going through a summary of the August financial statements. First on revenue, like I mentioned, the tax rate hearing, 81% of our revenue is from our local sources, which is tax revenue plus our program revenue, such as Preschool Discover Club and our food service program, child nutrition program. Operating revenues as of the end of August were about 2.6 million, just under 10% of the budget. That's a $1.4 million increase from last year at 1.2. The increase in revenue is related to our net insurance recovery. You've heard me talking about that for the last few months. We also got that MSD grant in lieu of taxes payment from the closing of the Cambridge Commons TIP and the SSD salary reimbursement payments that we've been waiting for. Expenditures, right around 78% is related to our people, our salary and our benefits. The rest of the breakdown is there before you. Expenses through the end of August are about 1.7 million. Purchase services are about 425,000. Supplies are a little over 307,000. They were about 350,000 this time last year. Capital outlay is about 180,000 and is higher than the prior year.
I just had a couple of questions about a couple of items. So on the expenses by function page, I just forgot to write the page number down, sorry. Item 1913, it's tuition to private agencies. It looks like we didn't budget for that in the past few years, but we paid out some money for that. What is that?
I would actually like to discuss that with you at a different time.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then item number 4051, building construction maintenance. We didn't have anything budgeted for this, but showing we paid $201,587 over the last 2 months.
I don't have the financial statements right in front of me, but at the close of, when we approved the budget, at the end of last fiscal year, we were still reconciling our bond and lease purchase payments, so those aren't budgeted, those will be added to the amendment.
The amendment, so that's an amount okay.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, one more.
Please don't apologize for asking.
Okay. Item 6431, textbooks. It says we budgeted $9,000 for the whole year, but we've already spent $27,000. So I was just curious what that was.
We are in the midst of a textbook. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. Yeah, so we're in the midst of piloting math products, K-12.
Yep, there you go.
And we had all of our projections for what that would be, and then in the flurry, some things got cut that I was like, wait. So the bill's still in the bill. So we had to
math pilot.
consolidate some things.
And then I had a general question for you, Chris, and maybe, but so when I was looking at like last month's financial statement to this month, and I noticed like in the budget column, some things shift around. And I guess, and then I was like trying to compare the budget, but there's no real like apples to apples comparison to this into the budget, is there?
Correct.
Because I was trying to, and I'm like, the numbers don't match, but then I'm like, no, they're not the same numbers.
Remember that budgets are fluid and dynamic, and over the course of the month, we do transfers
Right.
from account to account, so we may move from Fund 4 to Fund 1, or Fund 1 to Fund 4, or a purchase service to a supply,
Okay.
along those lines. So things will be different almost immediately as soon as the initial budget is approved. And then also, we are preparing our financial statements in the ASBR, and as we move things around there, some of the prior year numbers will change,
Okay.
which impacts the current year.
Right. So is there a way, like when you're inserting that number, just to bold it so we know which numbers are sort of changing from month to month?
Not
Not in the system.
Not in a way that I think would be meaningful. I'm not sure.
Okay, just in that column, because it's like, I'm just noticing like here and there things moving around, but then the total was a little bit higher. So I'll go back and look at it more and come back to you with better informed questions. But okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, thank you for the presentation. All right, for number 6, which is board communications and discussions, the calendar of events, doesn't seem to be working on my computer, so there's stuff, but I can't see it. Can anybody else see that?
It's front face.
It's not loading.
Okay, all right, nothing's happening. All right, so the board perpetual calendar.
Sorry, what Josh, what did you say?
The next item was the perpetual calendar.
I guess I'll just note our next work session is October 1st, and we're getting some building level goals reports from all the different buildings. So you can watch that and see what your students' building goals are. And then we're also going to have a presentation on extracurricular activities, fundings, and donations. So just an FYI.
All right, perfect. I'm sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I would like to note today is a special day, and the public comment stole my thunder a little bit. But I just wanted to say I am super appreciative. Thank you, Kat Norton, and everybody who is involved in launching the Assembly software. I'm really proud of our district's ongoing commitment to equity and innovation. And as was noted, the 2017 equity resolution for educational equity and social justice, which was under the leadership of Karen Hall and Nelson Mitten as a board director. I think that really set a public tone for our work. And then in February of 2020, the board approved our policy for educational equity, and that leadership and vision, really specifically, I would attribute that to Brandy Herndon-Miller and Frances Chemalier and Nikylin Knapper. They were critical in turning that tone into district-wide expectation with the unanimously adopted policy. So today, in 2024, we have that policy showing up, embedded into our agenda items, that who is impacted, is any group differently impacted, and if so, what can we do to reduce or eliminate disparities? It's a really big deal, and I just want to pause and recognize it, and thank Kat and Dr. Jameson and probably a whole bunch of district employees that touched that to make it happen. We've been the district that's been ahead of the curve on things like one-to-one technology. Before there was a global pandemic that made it necessary. We've been the district that was using chicken coops and school gardens to teach about sustainability before that was a buzzword. And now I think we're really poised as a district to be the innovative district that centers equity to close academic achievement gaps, no matter how our students identify. So that I think is super cutting edge. I just want to acknowledge it. And I remain deeply committed to this work. I'm thankful for this acknowledgement today.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question about are we still on the perpetual calendar?
I think so.
Okay. When I was under the impression from a couple meetings ago that we would be reintegrating the budget planning into the perpetual calendar. Do you know when that will happen? We were talking about October or November, receiving the budget directive and then moving forward from there. Do you know when that, because it's currently not in, it's not in the current version of the perpetual calendar?
So typically in the perpetual calendar, it's business that the board would typically do, for example. So if there are any items from a federal standpoint or items that are a result of board policy, so that is actually part of the conversation that we'll have for the goal statement, because it was also a timeline that would come with that, which is part of the full budgeting process. And so a document would come, which would include the outline for that, for the board to collectively review, but it isn't an item that you would see monthly on the perpetual calendar. So this serves as a planning tool and is not something that you would just drop something in. So that item actually is coming back. We'll talk about that later tonight, which also includes the board directive and also the request for an expedited timeline to ensure that the budget gets to the board in a more timely fashion. So it wouldn't be added to the perpetual calendar as it's not a required item, but it is on the list of things to be completed per the request from the board.
Well, okay, but then on, like, for example, page 17, it says it does include budget presentation materials on the perpetual calendar. But what I'm pointing out is that the perpetual calendar, so it does include that stuff actually, but it's not in the order that I thought we had talked about it being. I'm just wondering when we'll get a revised perpetual calendar that includes the budget materials in earlier months.
That's after we approve my goals, so that's part of the conversation when we met before we.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that tonight.
Let's see. All right, any other questions about the perpetual calendar? All right, so the PAL board report, I don't know if y'all have had a chance to meet.
Yeah, hi. I can speak about this a little bit for everyone. I was introduced a little bit, but my name's Maya Trumper, and I'm the president of the PAL board this year. We do not have an official presentation. I have just a few things I wanted to say briefly. We've met a few times this year, so we are. Would you like me to?
I don't know. They did in the past, but if you want to, you do it however you want.
I just have like 3 things to note. So it'll take me longer to walk away. What?
The audio is better where you're sitting.
Oh, okay.
Love to hear it. Okay, perfect. So this year we've met several times, and we're focusing on safe and inspirational spaces. We'll talk about that more in the coming meeting. I do want to note that we have specific plans to meet with both the middle school and the ECC in the coming weeks, and we're also also in the process of making plans to meet with the elementary school. So I just want to let you all know that that is underway. One additional note, we have already met with Dr. Dietrich, I believe, earlier this week, next week, it runs together, but talking about inspirational spaces. So that's all I have, just a brief update on what the PAL board is up to. Yeah, and we're excited to actually present next meeting.
Is there, I'm sorry, is there a holdover for, or carryover from like last board? Like, so that, you know, they said, hey, we're gonna go try to do these things next year. Is it sort of like flowing forward, or is it new every year?
Sure, so are you talking about like action items or like people or both?
Well, no, the people change, but I'm saying like as far as, yeah, action
Okay,
items.
got you. We're definitely going to try to continue a lot of the work we did last year because, I mean, yes. So shortly, yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks.
And there is some overlap of membership.
Right.
There is.
Glad to have
With
some
reapplication.
returning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now we've got the committee reports. We have had a few committees that have met.
Doesn't look like any reports have been submitted.
But I don't think any reports have been submitted. I don't know if anybody, well, why don't we wait till the reports are submitted before we comment on that. But just for those following at home, it looks like the ones that are coming up are going to be, you can report them?
Yeah, I did. I submitted one late this afternoon, so that's why.
Oh, okay.
I think Brian did too.
our
'Cause
committees-
meetings, mine was last night.
Ours is submitted also.
So if you want, I mean, it's fresh. I can,
Do whatever.
better chance I'll remember it
Do
now than
whatever you
in a
want.
month, I'll tell you that. Let me just find it now. All right, so we had our strategic planning committee for our people that Dr. Ambrose Phillips and Dr. Bouchard are the administrators in it, and then we had one of our three community members there, Jim Bryan. So we met last night, and we went through an outline of the strategic plan timeline, and then we heard a report on the focus of the management oversight team for our people strategic planning area, which is for, you know, staff is what for our people means, just for everyone. And then and this year they are really focusing on creating evaluation tools for all staff in all staffing areas. And then there was a discussion of what the management oversight team and administrators have identified as the current priorities with respect to accomplishing related goals of the plan. And then we also had a discussion about the fact that this portion of the strategic plan has about 44 action steps that, per the plan, are supposed to be completed by the end of this year. So we talked about that seems a little intense, like, you know, how do we spread it out over the full 5 years of the plan? And so most of those things have already been started, but sort of reevaluating and prioritizing like how long they'll actually take. So the public and everyone has a better idea. And then we also talked about the current outcome measures for this portion of the plan and identifying sort of what benchmarks specifically we're trying to meet. So instead of just saying, oh, we want to increase staff satisfaction on this, sort of how are we trying to do that? What number are we trying to get to, or what, you know, action are we trying to get to? So we, for our next meeting, we are going to, Dr. Ambrose Phillips was going to gather the priorities from the management oversight team, and then we're going to sort of go through and figure out how to recalibrate those dates, and then they're also going to provide us some baseline data to look at for the outcome measures. So our next meeting is December 18th at 5 p.m. So I thought it was a really great first meeting, and so I'm really excited to be on this committee. So.
Okay. All right, great. And I think Brian, did you want to present? You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm not the chair of the committee, but we did submit our minutes, and once they're revised at the next meeting, we'll.
Okay.
I could do Joe's, please.
Oh, would you like to?
Unless you want to print. So we've actually been to 2 Joe's Place meetings so far. Christy kindly attended with us on the first one to help us transition, but we had one last night and it was great. And Mr. Vince Estrada shared some awesome statistics with us that I want to share with you guys about the good work that Joe's Place does. So the Joe's Place graduation rate from 2009 to present is 34 out of 35 students, which is 97.21%. And the National Center for Homeless Education national graduation rates are only 68%. So clearly that Joe's Place is having a really huge impact on our students. students. Another statistic is the GPA improvement after 1 year at Joe's Place. The average is going from a 1.51 to a 2.64, which is a lot of ground to make up. So that is also very awesome. And then the attendance improvement after 1 year at Joe's Place is from 85% to 97%. So that again. And then transportation savings. So, you know, a lot of times these are students who we were paying to transport them from wherever they were living to school. So because they are located now in Maplewood, the Maplewood area, so we're saving about $4,717 per resident. We last night heard just from one of the residents about some of their awesome summer camp opportunities they had. So that was really exciting to see them flow and be excited about what they experienced. And then they also talked about that they're exploring grant opportunities through the Children's Service Fund and federal grants so that we can leverage current district commitment to Joe's Place for additional funding for all our unhoused students in the MRH school district. So I'm also very excited to be participating in this support. So Trent, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, thank you very much.
All right.
I just saw the email from
Thank you, Vince.
Are the summer camp opportunities only available for the students who are living in
other
Joe's?
funding, like grant opportunities.
Okay,
But
but
it was exciting just to see sort of how that.
okay, but so there's opportunities for students who may be experiencing
Yes.
disruption in their
Yes.
home lives,
Yes.
regardless of if they live at Joe's Place or not.
Okay.
Cool.
Anybody else have anything to report? Okay. All right, action items.
No, I've got my presentation. I had homework from the last meeting.
Oh, right. Oh, I don't see it.
Strategic Plan Advisory Committee's roles and
Oh, I'm sorry,
responsibilities.
Yeah, you're right.
So even though some of the strategic plan committees have met, we, as a board, talked last month about how we didn't, well, I was sharing my concern about not being clear on what expectations we have of each other. I think this is something we've been trying out, a new way of accountability for the district with the strategic plan and then how that is being implemented. And so there's been a lot of feedback into what this could look like for us. I think folks are aware that we tried to pick up some of the best practices from Maplewood City Council committees. We obviously have various folks on the board who have served in other capacities on advisories, task forces, and things of that nature. So there is a draft document attached that attempts to put all in one place, I think, information that was shared with the board last year as we were putting this idea slowly into motion. There are some links here to the various action plan sections of the strategic plan for each of the 5 committees. And per our board policy BCE that dictates how committees are set up, I did take the liberty to kind of put together a purpose, a length of time, resources, and date a report should be made to the board, details which are called for in our policy but had not explicitly been stated by the board previously. There is a key functions of both board members and community member representatives on the final page there. Certainly this is a working document with a lot of various pieces pulled together. I will highlight that when we, as a board, approved our community member participants in February, we did note that we were open to more folks joining the committee for, the academic year. We didn't necessarily have a full slate to consider for adding before the school year began. So that I think we should probably identify, as Maplewood City Council does, like a month in which we make appointments for the, the coming school year's committees, whether or not folks choose to continue their service, or, if folks serve a year and then, we bring in new community members into it. So certainly open to reactions of the board, and those of you that have actually participated in meetings may have some lived experience to breathe into this as well.
I'd like to comment. First of all, thank you very much for drafting this. I think it's exactly what we needed, and I agree with just about everything here. One item I think may be duplicitous, not duplicitous, duplicitous. It's duplicative. Duplicative. That's the word I was looking for.
Right.
Not duplicitous. Duplicative is item 3C on page 2. Access to software for posting meeting agendas in advance, providing written meeting minutes. Since we already have Assembly with the board reports, would it really be needed to have yet another location for meeting agendas, et cetera, et cetera? Could we just continue to use the system?
That was my assumption, that the software would be Assembly. I think that we've been told that in passing, if that isn't clearly articulated in that resource there. But yes, that I believe, because again, this is being pulled together under our policy, that it is something we would post these meetings in advance of them happening, right? So they are open to community, and we would need a record of them happening and any, recommendations.
One other thing, again, this might have come from last year's, and you might just copy and pasted it, and I think it's great. It's at the top of page 1, mentions cross-section of stakeholders, and one of the, parents, students, community members, and I was just wondering what outreach was done or is done to students to let them know they also could be a part of these committees. Just speaking on behalf of our committee, we would love to have, I think we would love to have more. I'll speak on behalf of the chair. I think we'd love to have more folks, including, and students may not know that they are also part of the plan, and I would just encourage distributing announcement of it, maybe through the PAL board or.
I was going to say, I know Avon is on my committee. Is it PAL board that was specifically tapped to sit on committees previously? I don't know the answer to that.
And so what we discussed in the planning is that the PAL board members, they have met, and typically I meet with them and they identify which committees are of interest. So for your resources, that student actually graduated. That's why you didn't have a participant, but they will identify where their interests are, and they also participate in the Board of Education roundtables too.
Maybe some aspiring future accountant or economist might be willing to join our.
I just want to reiterate, I do love, thank you, Katie, for doing this. I know this is a lot of work. I think it is a good idea. I was part of that team that sort of helped do that process in Maplewood, and it is very nice. I know Eleanor also was there for that. Was having a set time, and then making sure in all our publications that applications are rolling, so that, you could always ask people throughout the year, is nice. And so some ways we did that was, pushing it out in the Maple Leaf, having it in every one of those, and maybe the city would be kind enough to allow us to mention this and that too. And so I think that's a great idea to do it that way, so there's consistency.
And I think to a point that you brought up, Jenny, that we don't currently have as beautiful a landing page for our committees as the city of Maplewood does for theirs. So perhaps some of this detail could provide some content for a strategic plan committee, page of the website. So it's just more available to the community.
I'd also like to acknowledge that Richmond Heights is also involved in the community. So.
I'm
just teasing.
I haven't looked as detailed.
I'm just teasing.
We are both Richmond Heights residents.
I know that.
So,
Where's a little hometown pride?
I'll talk to Miss Hamilton about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
sorry. I just default to Maplewood. Thank you, Josh, for pointing out that.
That's okay. She's not here.
I I'm gonna tell her you said that. I guess the other piece is sort of like what our actual role is on the board. I think there's some like difference of like sort of what role we're supposed to take. So I guess I just wanted to sort of flesh that out, like how we want that to be. I don't know if people have ideas about that.
Kind of. I mean, I haven't had a chance to do my committee yet, so I'm not really even sure what it's going to look like. I think that after everybody's sort of had a chance to do a sitting, that we can probably come back together and take a look at that, because I don't think it would be fair to necessarily say, hey, like, you know, if we decide what our roles are prior to somebody saying, hey, well, that might not be able to work for me because of X, Y, and Z. That's my only thought on that.
And it may be, like, each board's a little different, so
Right,
maybe
that's what I mean,
it may be
yeah.
that there has to be some flexibility in there for sort of a different, I don't know, but,
And I apologize, Katie, for not reading that this was on there. Thank you so much for your work on that. I didn't mean to gloss over it.
No offense taken.
All right, so are there any other questions or comments?
Oh, the one other thing, and I think it would be helpful for us to come to an agreement around is a meeting schedule for each committee, and obviously those the meetings for this academic year are set in the agenda item. But I do think that impacts the ability to recruit. I hope it is a little bit more clear from this document that there is sort of a special designation for both the staff participants on these committees as well as the board members on these committees. Not to say that community member participation isn't important and necessary, but I do think that obviously finding times and dates that worked for board and staff was important for, again, note-taking purposes and sharing of meetings and things like that. I appreciate, again, that the standing committees of probably both cities, but I'm sure for Maplewood, they have a specific date and time when those committees meet, and so then when new people want to join those committees, they know ahead of time that, oh, I don't have, you know, this conflict on that date, I could join that committee. And if they do have a conflict for that date, maybe they look at a second choice that doesn't happen on the same night. So I do think having some consistency with when the committees meet, and that we, you know, follow through on those meetings being held when they're set, and that I would wonder if anybody thinks there's a situation where like a meeting would need to pop up, you know, that's not scheduled.
I can't imagine why they would, but I think that what we'll probably do then is schedule this for an executive work session, maybe next month or whatever, so that we can try to finalize at least when we're going to present to the community when the scheduled meetings are going to be for next cycle or whatever.
Yeah, or again, we have this year's meetings on the calendar. I think that is something that's in here. Like, are we in agreement that like a quarterly meeting into like the coming school year
What I'm
is
saying, I guess
appropriate?
what I'm saying is that as far as like we could discuss it again, like in executive session, we could certainly discuss like, hey, what do we want that to look like, and whether or not we want to project what it's going to look like earlier. I mean, for me, I always feel like the more time you have to prepare for something, the better. So sooner rather than later would be good. So yeah, I think that there is a tool here somewhere for me to put a note.
I guess that was something I wanted to bring up, is that, you know, I think like the committees can be pretty different. Like they interact with each other, and then I think like for our resources probably covers all of ours in a way. So like my thought is if we could build in some flexibility that you could maybe, if your committee finds the need to maybe meet once or twice extra, that is acceptable. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, quarterly is pretty far apart if you have a sort of a shorter term goal you're trying to accomplish as the committee. You know what I mean? So if you.
Well, I think that realistically, the committee should be able to set their own schedule.
Sure.
Like, so,
Okay.
I think, but I'm saying as far as, if you're looking, I think to Katie's point, to see whether or not you'd be available to serve,
Sure.
you know, because.
Yeah, I see, yes.
You know,
Like the second
that,
Wednesday of the month
right,
is
so
the-
that, yeah, it would
Yep.
be a Wednesday or whatever.
Sure.
You know, it may be another Wednesday of the month, not just the second one, but it will be
Which
a
is how boards
Wednesday.
and commissions and cities are.
So,
yeah.
so I think that, but, yeah, so,
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a good idea.
all right, so let me, I'm just,
And then-
Sorry, I have one, you go ahead and write your note. I have, one more wondering about that question, Jenny, in that, these committees are committees of the board and they are advisory. I'm not sure, about what goal we would be, you know, like I don't want us to get into the work of the administration, you know, of like accomplishing the goals that are in.
Right, and I think it's that, like, for instance, like, if there's a set of data you're looking at, maybe that data's not ready on your sort
Sure,
of time
okay.
schedule, so, but you don't wanna wait 3 more months to look at it. That's what I'm thinking
Okay.
about, is just sort of having some flexibility. So, I mean, this could just say committees will meet at least quarterly, and then that way it allows the flexibility, I guess. Should a committee find the need to meet more.
all right, perfect. Well, it sounds like a good work session item that, we can, schedule. We'll talk about it, Jenny, about next time we meet, about doing that. All right, so again, thank you. If, anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? Nope? All right, thanks again, Katie. All right, so we're gonna move on to action items, board policy IM.
Move to adopt policy IM as modified.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, action item 2, academic calendar.
Move to approve the adjustment to the 24-25 calendar to reflect January 3rd, 2025 as a teacher workday.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Consolidated, consolidation of earned leave to PTO.
I move to approve the consolidation of earned personal leave to PTO as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, perfect.